No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
And here we go. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor, and I'm glad you've joined me on this early Saturday morning. I'm recording this at the moment at 6:42 in the morning, and it is 64 degrees already. So I'm assuming today's going to be a warm day, which is okay. I don't mind. I think it's also supposed to be a rainy day. So that's okay too. I don't mind a rainy day. I'm going to be in the house all day working. I do need to plant some flowers, so I'll run out there very shortly when the sun comes up. Still dark outside. And get those plants in the ground so it gets some water. Anyway, I was going through my content every morning. I look at the news and the business news and find out what's going on and what's going to affect it's going to affect my business and going to affect your personal business. And this morning, as I was going through the news, I came across an article that really interested me because since I do tax advisory work, I'm always interested in new tax news. And if you're in Georgia, the state of Georgia, you would probably be interested in this one also because I didn't know it happened. In 2019, the state of Georgia passed a law, and this will be the first year that it goes into effect that you can deduct this, but they came up with what is called a bill which allows unborn children to be claimed on the Georgia state tax return. Not as a tax credit, but as a deduction. And as a deduction, it lowers your taxable wages. So that's interesting because that kind of went silent, right? No one talked about it. Because that would be big news, right? Especially if you're talking about abortion rights and all this other stuff. But in the state of Georgia, if that child is unborn and is in your stomach at the time you file your tax return, it's deductible. So if you're in Georgia, contact your tax practitioner and talk to them about that. Listen, I am pregnant. Well, not me personally, but you guys, if you guys are pregnant. Well, wait a second. I guess I could, under this new gender stuff, nonsense, I guess I could say, hey, you know what? I'm pregnant. I can have a child. I'm a guy. I can have a child. I want this deduction. Oh, we live in a tangled web in this great nation of ours. We have got so many different thought processes and absurd thought about life and death and everything else. It's I just look at it and I think, God, how did we go wrong? What snapped in our brains that said, as a guy, I can be pregnant? I can be a woman. I can be a donkey. In some schools, they're allowing children to come to school and claim that they are cats or dogs, and absolutely not. And they also have put little boxes so that they can go pee. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. We Americans have gone absolutely nuts. And we got to get our lives back in order because we're losing it. By the way, I was reading, Goldman Sachs came out with a report yesterday. And that Inflation Reduction Act that passed under Biden, remember it was supposed to reduce inflation, right? So Goldman Sachs came out and said that the Inflation Reduction Act is going to cost the United States $1.2 trillion. 1.2 trillion. The story is down below. Everything I'm talking about today is down below if you want to talk about it. Anytime that the government says it's going to reduce think the opposite. It's going to increase. Because the government doesn't understand reduction. They don't understand cutting costs. They don't understand that. So they may use the word stupidly, but it never reduces the cost. Nothing that government does reduces costs. And that's why we get into so much trouble. That's why we have this inflationary period. We're going into a recessionary time. We have people being laid off. We have the jobs market not being reported correctly by the government. We have a massive amount of problems. I tell you one of the biggest problems that I see at the moment, okay? We have this conflict, this mini conflict between Iran and the United States in Syria. Why are we in Syria? I have no idea. But what's happened is that over the last couple of weeks, Iran and Saudi Arabia had a peace deal brokered through the Chinese government. So now we have allies between Saudi and Iran who have been enemies for ages and ages. And by the way, Saudi has been our ally against Iran. But no more, that's gone. So we have now gotten ourselves into where China is taking the adversaries and creating them to be peaceful, and so that they can now attack the United States. So if you're thinking about this process of how we deal with our foreign adversaries, and that are who we thought were friends. By the way, China still has a status where it says that they are an economic status with the United States. That shouldn't be anymore. We need to take that away. But now China is taking all of these people who used to be our allies and turning them against us. That's very serious. It's very concerning to me that no one is really even, out of the Biden administration, is even focused on China. No one is even saying, okay, enough is enough. We're going to put an end to this. So China goes to Russia, and Russia are now allies. Russia and China are allies who are against the United States. Saudi and Iran are now allies who are against the United States, brokered and developed by China. And no one is doing one single thing about it in the United States. Biden ignores it. The State Department does nothing. So we may have a situation that this global economy, this global marketplace, is going to be dominated by China. And that's never good for the welfare of the United States. But no one's fighting for the welfare of the United States. I also saw an article this morning which was interesting. It says, White House is worried over Janet Yellen's fumbling of U.S. bank crisis. Well, and that, by the way, that comes from the New York Post. I would say that we as Americans and we in business have already known that Janet Yellen has screwed it up. She sits there and she denies it. Oh, the economy's good. She just said it yesterday. The economy's good. As companies lay people off. Debt grows. Inflation is not under containment. It's still going. And we have a bank crisis, and this bank crisis keeps getting bigger and bigger every single day. This global economy may not have been such a good idea. Because if one bank fails in Credit Suisse in Switzerland, that affects American banks here. If one economy in another nation fails, it affects us here. If we have a failure, it affects other nations. So I think we need to rethink this global economy thing and think about the priorities of America first before we worry about what's happening in all these other countries on their economic levels. We need to think through this process. And we need to really focus on the diplomatic terms that we have with these nations. What do we have in writing with these nations that protect America? Now, Trump was going down the right path on that issue. He was setting up all of these relationships and all of these deals between these countries, and then Biden came into office and he literally wiped everything out. So now we have basically zero. So we need to start focusing on the United States. And Yellen cannot be going and lying to us every day that the banking system is safe. And by the way, what has happened over the last few days, nearly $100 billion in deposits were pulled from banks. And then the Treasury lady, Yellen, says the banking system is sound. If people are moving their money, people feel as though that the banking system is not sound. And you can keep saying, oh, it's sound, but guess what? That's not the way people see it. People are much smarter now. Much smarter. I can't talk this morning. By the way, I read another thing, and this should be of concern. There was a U.S. company who has offices in Shanghai. China goes into their office and raids this U.S. firm in Beijing. I'm sorry, it was in Beijing. And then it detains its staff. And then they removed the staff and they moved it outside of the city of Beijing, and no one knows what's going on with them. And the company was given no notice, was given no warning that there was any issue with the government. All of a sudden, the military officers just rolled into their office and shut it down. So listen, if you have a business in China, beware, you could be raided, because we have this adversary now called China. So that is Saturday. Not very good news, right? Well, here's some good news. No matter what, we're still going to make it through everything. You and I are strong people. We can make it through inflation. We've made it through the pandemic. We can make it through inflation. We can make it through a recession. And we can make it through bad government. Until the next time we vote, we can vote in better people. We have a future, and we're in control of it. We are in control of this nation. Even though they think they're in control, the government thinks they're in control. No. You and I, we're in control. And we're going to do better next time in the people that we vote for. Because a lot of these people need to leave. They've been there way too long. We need to get people in there that's going to fight for us. Listen, if you have a business question, send it to my email at thebusinessadvisor@gmail.com. And if you would like to sit down with me and go over business issues, business concerns, if you need some coaching on business, go to my website and you can schedule me online at www.lodge-co.com. Everybody go out and have a great Saturday. Love you all. Peace. Bye-bye.